voice that was revolutionary, and the memory of a revolutionary person can almost be more potent than the life of the revolutionary person. And so even in death, they have to destroy or rewrite that person because they've become bigger than life, like you said. And so I've seen just anecdotally, you see a lot of conservative movements that attempt to co-opt Dr. King's legacy, when a lot of the things that not all the things, but a lot of the things that they stand for are completely antithetical to what Dr. King stood for. Where Dr. King, he was killed after he began speaking out boldly against the ills of the failure of the war on poverty, speaking out against Vietnam, speaking on the poor man's campaign and the economic bill of rights and the redistribution of wealth, all these things that he started saying right before he was assassinated. Well, now he's been completely whitewashed to being only about the dream, the sanitized version of Dr. King that even ideologies or agendas that were counter to his beliefs now have the ability to co-opt him and use him for their purposes. What do you think about that observation? And is there any correlation between that and the museum effect of people just wanting, well, let me clarify that a little more. To me, the museum effect seems to be simply the desire to be seen on the winning side, whereas the co-opting narrative is somewhat more malicious and propagandistic. There's a goal. There's an intention. They're intentionally rewriting history. What do you think about the difference between the two, and is there any overlap?
Right. I think they're the same thing. What you have is you have the selective use of any particular person's work, body of work, literature. You can look at biblical texts. How many people, I can open a Bible right now and I can pull out any particular quote and take it out of context. Mm-hmm. People do that all the time. Not reading the whole Bible. Very few people seem to have read the whole thing and get the whole gist of it. But, pulling out any selective text, you can get a support for almost any particular point of view. So, yes, there is a selective use of people's work to move some agenda forward, whether that's political, economic, cultural agenda, whatever that is. And then you have these museums that become the artifact or manifestations of this representation. So whatever that is, that's how the museums are dynamic places. So over time, these places change as the needs of the population change, or as you call it, propaganda, whatever that message is change, that can be altered as well. So yeah, that's a dynamic effect that occurs. Now, whether or not this is malicious, I don't think there's a malicious intent. I don't think people are out there saying, I'm going to take someone's complete work and I'm going to maliciously take it out. I just think that what resonates with the population is a quote, a poem, a 3-minute song or 2-minute song, and you putting the complete works out there, it just doesn't resonate very well from a marketing point of view. Another example, I think we talked about this during our dinner. I was in New York City many years ago and walked into a record store on the corner. It was sort of dusk. And I was like, hey, let's see what they have in there. Of course, they had their CDs. This is when vinyl was coming back, all those things. And I looked behind the counter up on the shelf, and there were 2 things up there. And they were both the Michael Jackson sing-along microphone, whatever it was. So something from the early 80s. And it was like a little microphone. It was Michael in his early years. And, you could actually, I guess, use it like a little karaoke machine and so on. There were 2 boxes of it up there, though. They were the same product, same design, except Michael on one was African-American. Michael on the other was very much highlighted skin color. And I looked at that, maybe one box is faded or whatever. I pulled them both down onto the shelf and looked. No, same company, same everything. It was a deliberate marketing campaign that Michael, darker, that went into certain stores for certain communities, for certain demographic, and Michael, very much lighter, clearly went to the Toys R Us's in the suburbs or wherever it was. And so whoever it was marketing this product knew Michael Jackson, who was a part of the Jackson 5, who was a Black family singer, etc., who moved mainstream, who now becomes a national pop culture item. There was a thought or a need from the marketing point of view to lighten him up, so there was that connection, empathy with a greater population besides just Black youth. And so even that, back in the 80s, seeing that in that record store, nostalgia in the record store, seeing that, these are deliberate attempts to meet certain demographic niches. And the niche is I need to see myself in there, and therefore, if the skin color is too dark or too light or whatever, I have a hard time making that connection, and that's what happened.
So why is it then that, I mean, and of course I have my opinions on it, but from your perspective, why is it that they white people, because we're looking from the dominant culture, which even in an economic sense it makes sense economically. You know, this is the dominant culture. The more people here, more money here. We want to market here. But why, in terms of the culture itself, why can't there just be an embracing of blackness without having to lighten the skin? From your perspective.
Why won't there be an embracement of blackness by the dominant white community, you mean?
Yeah. Why do you feel that there's the need to have this the museum effect, this appropriation, the lightening of Michael Jackson's skin in one box versus the other? Why do you feel that there simply is not the ability or the boldness or the braveness to just accept the black culture without having to rewrite it?
Right. Well, I think there's multiple layers going on simultaneously. So let's just talk about hip hop. Mm-hmm. So hip hop, again, started off primarily in the African American community. It became successful. Then there was some white appropriation, but there was also black pullback as well. And so now when you think of some of the artists, you know, like the Eminems and stuff, mm-hmm. there is this argument that he appropriated some of this music or has, you know, jumped in there. But at the same time, it was also seen as counterculture. So embracing the blackness was sort of a rebellion of youth to go that direction. So I think there is an element of embracement, but I think there's more of a mixing going on, and what comes out of that mix on top is often the dominant culture. That said, let's turn the tables. I'm going to sort of turn the tables on you. Think about during segregation, in particular, some of the research conducted with my colleague Perry Carter and stuff we've chatted about. Mm-hmm. During segregation, using travel agents, for example, or any other stuff, haircuts, you go down the list. You know, you had to go to an African American barber, you had to go to an African American store, you had to go to African American travel agent, and then the whites obviously went to theirs. After segregation was removed, you didn't have a mass migration of white folks going to African American establishments, but you did have the opposite, where you had African Americans going to white establishments. Mm-hmm. Were those white establishments better? I don't know if they were or not, but there was a perception that they were better. And so there was that movement. So I think one of the ideas of why you don't have a lot of white dominant culture going and migrating to black culture or black establishments there is a perception that is not as good.
Yeah.
But when it is with hip hop, when it does have a market, it doesn't just go there. It goes there in mass and often dominates what's going on.
Right. And so, I mean, you've said you said a mouthful there. There is there is a train of thought, and one could argue, and I have argued, that the integration itself was in a lot of ways detrimental to the black community economically, if nothing else, because of exactly what you said. As soon as integration was available, blacks migrated into white spaces for their stores, for their services, for their goods, and white people did not in turn come to the black community. And that robbed the black community of a lot of wealth that had been built up even despite Jim Crow, right? So we see that there was a gutting of the black community economically for those very reasons. So the question is, or actually, before I get to the question, another example of this is the cover of 1966 of Ebony magazine, which it is a black space, historically a black space. It infamously had a cover asking if black women, if Negro women were getting more beautiful. And they had on the cover all of the fair skinned black women who had processed hair. No black woman in their natural state, in their natural, dark complexion and their afro or their kinky hair, or however you want to describe it. And so there's this white supremacist effect even on black people that makes us look towards things that white people have told us for years are beautiful, are successful. And to me, that had a direct effect of what you're talking about. And I think that effect lasted is still lasting today, where we're having to rewrite our beauty standards based on ourselves versus based on what the dominant culture has told us for years. So you're saying, and if I'm hearing you correctly, are you saying that it was not only black people who left blackness and went to consume whiteness, but white people just stayed there and didn't feel that there was anything that blacks could offer up until something like hip hop came around, where now here's something that's so lucrative, so successful, that not only do they come in, but oftentimes they want to dominate that space as well. Am I hearing you correct? I mean, I know I said a lot, but on that tail end of what I'm thinking I'm hearing, is that a fair estimate?
Yeah, I think the movement from white culture into African American culture post segregation, I don't think there was perception of increased value. It's separate because it's inferior, therefore there's nothing to be appropriated. But when there was something worthy of appropriation, I think there is a lot of whiteness that goes in there, often white capital more than anything else. And when that comes flooding in, it floods in a big time. Now, to your ebony thing, I agree at that one level, which is the ebony cover of blackness. Beauty of blackness is often has described or hidden with whiteness or white features. But I would say even a layer on top of that, let's talk about marketing, even whiteness within whiteness. Think of the cover of Cosmo. No woman looks like the cover of Cosmo, even within the white community. But most white women have some desire to look like that. So in some sense, what we're talking about is marketing of an ideal, and the ideal type, the ideal archetype, stereotype, whatever it is often not reachable and often is very white. But we will spend tons of money and effort to try to achieve that, which is unachievable.
All right, I think this is a good place for us to take our first break. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to pick up with the cultural appropriation. We want to talk about the McGraw-Hill textbook, where they have categorized slaves in the same chapter as migrant workers, and their mishandling of that. And then we want to talk about a few other things. I do want to get your comments and feedback, so you can send me a tweet at the BPD show. You can leave a comment in the YouTube section. They do come to my phone, and I will read them on air. Or you could join the conversation, 857-600-0518. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show, and I'm with Dr. David Butler, and we will be back after this. Dr. Butler, I'm going to send you a quick message.
Okay.
When you're ready to lose weight, why count, track, and worry over every meal? Jenny Craig makes it simple. Just walk into a neighborhood Jenny Craig center or give us a call. You'll meet your dedicated personal consultant who helps you reach your goals. Together, you'll pick out delicious Jenny Craig foods that you'll love and design a menu that fits your life. And the best part is that you can get started losing weight right away. Don't wait any longer to take advantage of our best offer ever. Call 1-800-JENNY20 or visit jennycraig.com.
This is the sound of salmonella gyrating on your undercooked chicken. And it looks like Mom might be taking it out a little early. Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. So use a thermometer to cook each type of meat to the right temperature. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
On the next episode of Recipes for Disaster.
I'm making beef sliders for my friend Sandy. Nana taught me to always pull meat off the grill early so it's extra juicy.
Use a food thermometer to ensure ground beef is 160 degrees, or you could make people really sick. Sandy didn't think twice about the slider she ate until yoga class, when a nasty case of food poisoning turned her downward-facing dog into upward-moving lunch. Watch Recipes for Disaster at foodsafety.gov and learn the steps Maria unwittingly leaves out. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
I want to be a warm place on a cold day. I want to be a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.